how does it work? Said, we want to use your athleticism. And so they decided that I had superhuman strength. So then they sent me to this sort of circus school in Van Nuys. I'm sort of telling this roundabout. But Bob Zirkus. Anyway, he had this sort of circus school in his backyard, and I learned how to walk on a wire and do flips and do all this stuff so that I could do these tricks. And so when I came out of my coma and thought I was back in high school and that I was 18 years old, then they had to have me do stuff. So I went out for cheerleading, and then I joined the wrestling team. And that's when I had the romance with Mike. So by throwing him around on the mat, that's how that turned out. So it was very strange. I mean, in a way, having all that weird stuff, all that fun stuff in the second season was sort of Nadine's reward for all her sorrows of the first season, I think. It was like, here you go, you can be 18. But there was a cost, It was like an insane 18-year-old took over my body in the morning and beat the crap out of it and then handed it back at night. I was just, oh. And the episode that Diane Keaton directed, where I came through the door and I found Big Ed and Norma in bed together. And I'm coming back from a wrestling, and I came through the door and I'm supposed to take the door with me. And I did, and there was one take where it fell and it banged against my leg. And I had a bruise that went from knee to ankle. It was really, you couldn't see it under the knee socks. But Diane said that because I was wounded in the service, I got to pick the take. So I picked the one where it whacked my leg, and you can see in that episode, you can see that door hit my leg. And I thought, see, I didn't even flinch.
We watched that one tonight.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't flinch. But that was just, I don't know. I mean, I was like Alice who fell down the rabbit hole. It was just the most marvelous thing. It was so much fun. And never knew what was going to happen next.
Well, we also see in the episodes that we watched tonight that even the purest of Twin Peaks families, the Haywards, have a sort of sordid past. And I'm curious to know a little bit about that decision for Eileen and for the sort of Ben Horn's storyline, how that evolved, and if you had anything to do with the direction that your character went in.
Well, what I remember is David saying, "Oh, we've got," because I said, "What exactly happened?" I think it was before. What is like the backstory? He said, "We have so many scenarios. We have so many just really horrible, like crazy. I mean, one is that she wasn't really paralyzed. It was all psychosomatic from the guilt of and then it was one where she was involved with Ben and somebody. It went on and on and on. There were so many things, So I never got one explanation. I mean, it was never decided on. So. I sort of just try to go along with what you have there, but I know it's but it was sort of fun to think that she wasn't really crippled. She's just choosing to stay in the wheelchair. But I wanted to tell one story about talking about the creativity on the set and David and the sort of wonderful openness. I think it was the scene after, probably maybe you're watching it next after the Miss Twin Peaks, and I think everybody, it was like the morning, we went to work, And I read the script and I thought everybody had been sort of up almost all night the night before, and I went in and we were, you know, the costumes and everything were like it was the next day, like everyone was in clothes they'd put on in the morning, and I kept asking, you know, the makeup and costume and saying, well, I thought we were up all night, shouldn't we be in the clothes we wore? And they said, no, no, no. And then we went in for, you know, we were sort of everybody was pretty much in makeup and hair and dress, and it was so many people were in the scene, and we were having a rehearsal, and I said to David, oh, I thought, you know, we'd be up all night, maybe we would be in the clothes, and he just stopped, and then he said, everybody back. You know, I mean, it took like 3 more hours before, but that's how he was. If he heard an idea or anything, he would always listen to, you know, he might not do it, but I mean, he listened to everything that someone said. And it was so encouraging to have someone, you know.
Can I add on to that? Do you remember the rock throwing episode? Rock throwing scene? Well, I said that to somebody that Lucy would be researching Nepal or something the next day. I mean, in the office, and they said no, she wouldn't. I said, it was Greg Feinberg, not to mention anybody's name. He said no, she wouldn't. It cost too much money, and we don't have the time. So I said okay. And then when David came to direct it, I mentioned, oh, of course you would. I need a book on Nepal in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. And he pointed to whoever was the first person that said no, and said, "You do it." Aces.
I could say something else about David, because it was that episode too of the day after when we're in Ed and Nadine's house, and we're all still, I remember that blue prom dress. It will haunt me for the rest of my days. But when I read that scene, it was hilarious to me. You know, I saw the humor in it, and when we came to shoot it, I know we waited a long time before we shot it. I know there were hours of waiting to shoot that, and then David shot it as if it were Greek tragedy. I mean, it was so, you saw every bit of pain in everyone's face and heart, and yet you still saw all the humor. It was the most amazing piece of, you know, watch for that. That was like, okay, genius.
Can you tell us a little bit about the experience of shooting the Black Lodge? We've heard a few stories about how, you know, it wasn't quite as it was scripted.
No, it wasn't. No, I mean, actually, read in another edition of Wrapped in Plastic that what the original scene was supposed to be. In fact, Wyndham was supposed to come on at a certain point, start singing Cole Porter tunes. Like, in olden days, a glimpse of stocking was looked at, you know. But that was all cut. And David, this is actually the only time I worked with him was on that episode. And I remember a couple of things, like I had Heather Graham in the truck that I had borrowed, let's say. And I had this certain text, I forget what it was. He said, Wyndham, just throw all that away and just grab her by the head and push her face into the window and say, oh look, 10 rainbow trout. Cool, that's good. And, a little later on, as we're heading towards the red curtains, we're about to, go into the, what David sometimes referred to as the Kmart down there. He said, okay, all right, these actors are great, you're all great. Now, here's what we're gonna do. Wyndham, you hold the flashlight, and when you're speaking, you hold it on yourself, And when Heather's speaking, you hold it on her, okay? Let's go, good deal. And so that's how we lit the scene, that we were walking towards the curtains. I really enjoyed the way he would, on the moment, on the second, just decide, you know, this is how it's going to be, not the other way, but this way, you know. And then once we got down there, Wyndham was sort of cut short, because he was supposed to last a bit longer, I think, down there than he did, because Bob just suddenly went, pulled out my soul, and I was gone. You know, that was it. And then I sort of appeared kind of in an image or so here and there, but basically he felt that that part of the story wasn't relevant to what was going on down there. It was more about what was happening with Cooper, you know, than, you know, we wanted to focus on his sort of duality. And but it was fun learning to talk backwards, because apparently Mike was an expert at that in junior high school, and that was like his thing. He knew how to do diphthongs backwards. And as you
Mike
know,
Anderson?
that's difficult. Yeah, Mike Anderson. And as you know, that's very difficult to do. You take most diphthongs, you think you can do them, but you can't. And he would take us each and, you know, show us how to do it. He was an absolute expert on that. And I remember, oh, here's a mysterious thing. There were several mysterious things that happened to me on this show. So one of them was that I was doing ADR, and that's, what do they call it, additional dubbing recording, you know, back in Toronto, on the phone with David, doing the talking backwards. And I asked the technician if I could have a copy of the tape. He said, yes, of course. So he made me a copy of the tape. I took it home, and a few weeks later, I was going to play it for somebody. I could not find it. I looked throughout my house for like months, never found the tape. Gone. Another time, no. There were 2 times when I was flying in on, I flew down from Toronto each time for each episode that I was in. And on 2 separate occasions, this happened. One of these 2 things happened. The plane was about to land, and the pilot comes on and goes, "We're about to land in Los Angeles airport, and I'd like to report that George Bush has just invaded Iraq." That was one. The second one, again, we're during another episode I'm coming back for. We're about to land at LAX, and he comes on, he says, "We're about to land at Los Angeles airport, and I have to tell you there's an earthquake." He said, "It's not here, it's in San Francisco." So, you know, there was some weird stuff. I'm getting off, of course, because I wasn't really in that room very much. But you know, that's my story for now.